Hi everyone, I'm Pete Woodbridge from Draw and Code. What we've got for this next panel is a slightly different format. We've got a few of our brilliant kind of local companies who are exploring this kind of convergent space between music, sound, visual, game technology, and they're just going to show a bit of their work. So the speakers are going to come up kind of one by one and then sort of talk about what they're up to. And then at the end, we'll invite everyone back onto the stage to ask some questions as well. So have a think about any sort of questions you'd like to ask. First speaker we've got is my colleague, Phil Charnock, who works for Draw and Code, who are an immersive experience company doing work across AR, VR, AI, kind of all kinds of kind of crazy things. And they're quite well established. I think it was the 10th birthday a couple of days ago. So without further ado, here's Phil. Cool.
Hello. So, hello everybody. Thank you, Pete. Pete is our kind of R&D wizard at Draw and Code. I do something rather different. I'm about sales, partnerships, marketing, but hopefully after 10 years in the game, I've got a bit of an understanding of what this technology is all about. And we've been established in Liverpool for 10 years, as I say, for the last decade. We've completed over 140 projects during that time for all sorts of weird, wonderful, big and small clients and collaborators, everyone from Google through to Mercedes, Red Bull, you name them. We've worked with them, and the one thing they've all shared is a hunger for innovation and to experiment and to do something different with new technology. And one of our favorite sectors to work in has been music, and there's very good reason for that. My background is music. That's where I came from into this whole technology thing. And for us, it's been one of our best areas to work in. And why is that? I think because music is an immersive experience. It is something where you might put headphones on and you might sit there and completely lose yourself in music, or we're here in what is usually a nightclub, usually a music venue, most typically, and you're in the dark. It's like being in the cinema. You're just focused on the music, and that is immersive by definition. And for over a century, music has been pushing the boundaries of what technology is. This is a recreation of a flute that is considered by some people to be the first automatic machine, the first machine that could operate itself without any human input. And here we've got the famous HMV dog that supposedly this image has its roots on Bold Street here in Liverpool. And down here we've got Will Powers that by some kind of, in my opinion at least, and I think in the opinion of a few others, Will Powers was a music project that basically laid a foundation for a lot of the concepts that we're now calling metaverse, such as avatars and characters that aren't quite real, that embody something else. And it was the world's first 3D music video, that as well. It wasn't Dire Straits. Looking at some of our work, I say we've done 140 projects, so don't worry, I'm not going to run through all of them. Otherwise, we'll definitely be here a long time. So I'm just going to highlight just a couple that are centered around music. Skepta's Dystopia 987 show, I don't know if any of you went to it. That was at the Mayfield Depot in Manchester as part of Manchester International Festival. It's a collaboration with Royal Shakespeare Company, with Epic Games, with Magic Leap, amongst others. And it was exploring how audiences will respond to new technologies in gig environments. And to that end, your phone was taken off you as you entered the venue, and then you were presented with incredible installations. We provided some of them, particularly the Magic Leap mixed reality experience you can see down here, but there was many other experiences as part of it as well. It went on to inform the Audience of the Future Innovate UK project that the Royal Shakespeare Company was working on. And it was something that, for us, it was incredible to have this smorgasbord of technology in a gig venue and to actually present it not on a personal device, but on a big stage in a big venue. So that was on a personal device that was a little bit different. We've been working with Sony Music on a few different projects. One of the most exciting was with Pink Floyd. And Pink Floyd, obviously, they have their visual iconography. You can see them as much as you can hear them with some Pink Floyd records. And we got to use web AR and social AR, such as what we were talking about before with Meta's Spark AR and Instagram, and we were using that to bring elements of their album artwork into the real world using augmented reality. So we used Eighth Wall, which is the de facto web AR engine at the moment, and that was basically, it was a really good opportunity to play with their visual iconography and to actually contribute a little bit to their lore. We got to change some things with the band's approval. It was a hit. It hit all its KPIs. It made big numbers, basically. The idea was to sell out a quite an expensive Pink Floyd box set. It did just that. And we went on to work with Sony Music on several other activations. We've got one here for AC/DC. We've got one in the studio right now that will be launching in a week or so. And then a bit closer to home, All We Are, a fantastic Liverpool-based band that we basically encountered because it's the power of social media. They put out a post and they tried one of our VR experiences. And we said, hey, we love your music and they loved what we were doing with VR. Let's do something together. And they wanted to use VR to basically record their performance and allow their fans to get a little bit closer to their world in a totally different and experimental way. So we used volumetric techniques. I won't quite say volumetric technology, as that technology's moved on. And this was a little different. It was basically using Microsoft Kinects to record them and basically as point cloud data. And it was what we consider to be a world's first. We're happy to be corrected if we're wrong. But this happened quite a few years ago. And it's something that we've seen very little of since, where it was a full real-time 3D volumetric video that you could explore as you would a first-person video game. And although at the time we'd seen Radiohead had done their House of Cards video using point cloud data, that wasn't real-time, that wasn't interactive, and it certainly wasn't VR. So what does the future hold? We've prided ourselves on the last 10 years or so. We've usually been either ahead of the curve or we've been moving with it. And some of the things that we're excited to work with at the moment is virtual production technology, as you will see ILM and the like using on Star Wars and Mandalorian, and seeing that used in gig environments and in TV shows is an incredible thing. I don't know if you saw the Katy Perry performance where she used virtual production technology. It was utterly stunning, beautifully kind of simple as well, and beautifully choreographed. The next gorillas, they will be metahumans. If you're familiar with metahuman technology, pioneered by Unreal, the idea of very lifelike human characters that can be embodied using things like phones to track your movement and your facial expressions. We believe that there will be a splurge of these kind of characters. NFTs, we were mentioning them briefly before. There's a couple of kind of producers and artists that I keep my eye on, and their careers have basically been enabled by them. I don't know what I make of them personally, but if it's allowing good people to make incredible music and make that sustainable for them, I'm all for it. And also, as was mentioned briefly before, the Epic Games and Bandcamp tie-up is so exciting. It could just be about syncing music rights, or they could do something really creative. And really, you should all go and play Fortnite. There's an event tomorrow, a music event tomorrow. It's free. Go and try it for yourself. As we were talking about before, just go and try these free tools or free experiences that are out there and go and see what you make of it. Anyway, that's me. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Phil. Next up, we've got Sam Wiehl, who's a visual artist working with tons of bands on kind of live performance visuals, and most recently kind of exploring what real-time technology can do for that kind of medium. Sam's also one of the brains behind PsychFest as well, which is a festival we're hoping to see back in Liverpool soon, exploring the relationship between art, technology, and music. So, Sam, take it away.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Hello, everyone. I'm working in kind of three areas as a visual artist, in audio visuals and live production. I'm also working with installation design and also in music video. And I'm kind of using a lot of technology for how I'm making my content. And I've, in the last 3 or 4 years, really kind of concentrated on a lot of work in game engines, specifically Unreal Engine. And it's been a really kind of an interesting time because I was building lots of material that was going to be for live shows, and the pandemic happened, and everything went on hold for a couple of years. And so I actually found that I learned how to use the software, making lots of music videos, but now I'm kind of in the process of being able to go back out again, really. And I'll show you a couple of short showcases of 2 new projects which will launch this summer. And yeah, it's quite exciting, really, to kind of hone the skills I've been using to make videos in a live format. And there's a lot of reasons why I'm really enjoying Unreal. And, you know, my work is quite storytelling based, and it's quite figurative and quite human related and emotional. And actually can get a lot of this kind of feeling using the engine, and the immersiveness is exactly what I'm kind of, you know, as my interests to kind of take an audience on a journey. This is what I found has been like a really useful tool. I think also that the endless possibilities of the game engine is what's really appealing. Your imagination is the starting point, and there will be a way of articulating that vision. The immersive quality of the experience as well is what I'm really interested in, that it is a VR experience, even sometimes as video, I find. And I'm trying to look at using the tool as a live performance tool, almost possibly kind of bypassing wearable tech to give audiences a very much like a first-person VR experience, but within a group, so they all have a shared experience of the journey, and obviously coupled with music and, you know, the fact that you're going to a show and you're already excited. I think it's like a really powerful experience, and a really, you know, you kind of give yourself up to it. You are willing to jump into this world. And I think as I work with a lot of musicians and artists, this is the kind of work I'm looking kind of to do. And if I quickly show you 2 examples of the way the work converges, I guess, like that's being talked about across different disciplines, whether it be a live performance, a music video, an online version, a VR version. I think that's a very exciting area, really, for me to work in. The next bit is for an artist called Lake Turner, who's on Compact Records. We're based in Berlin. And it's kind of like an ideal project of showing how 3 or 4 things run out of the same project. So this has got a bit of audio. So I'll show you a little clip from a live performance we actually did in Birkenhead at Future Yard as a kind of a tester. It was streamed through Compact's label, and obviously they've got a huge fan base. And yeah, I'll show you a little bit and see if, you know. So what you've got there is, there was a live stream, there was a physical performance by Andrew and myself live in the venue. There was also the virtual world that I created. These actually, I collaborated with a sculptor based in Barcelona who made the sculptures, and we 3D scanned these, and then these became the actual landscape in our Unreal virtual world. And I had like a number of laptops all running different levels, different patches, and we cut between them live. But it was the kind of the relationship between the simultaneous experiences of it, that there was a clean stream of just the virtual world. There was a mixed stream of us performing with the virtual world projected on a screen behind. And there's also the next development is there's the actual sculptures have been made into a small physical landscape, and we've got small robot cameras that are moving in between these. So for us, these kind of like dualities of mixing the idea of what's real in the performance. Also, the stream was really key to us. We really liked the idea of, this is a free stream. People could see it all over the world. Compact's got a really big fan base. And there's like an immediate kind of, relationship between a physical performance in a venue and also an online performance. The next one I'll show you quickly is... Okay, I'll let it play first. So this worked for an artist called Jan Teersen, who is he's kind of a classical composer who was very famous, the Amelie film soundtrack, and he's moved into releasing more of an electronic-based kind of last couple of records. So they asked me to kind of almost like create a visual world that then we could kind of also turn into a live production. So this is kind of like the perfect place for me to kind of work, where I'm making music videos, then looking at how we design the show, then how do we deliver the show. This was us testing in Paris, and the idea is that we have 4 Unreal Engine machines running. We've got 2 screens. One is transparent at the front of the stage, and then 2 powerful projectors shooting out. And the idea was a little bit, how can we give a 3-dimensional virtual experience, asking people not having to wear any glasses or having to any headsets or anything like that. The idea is, could we create somehow a kind of an immersive experience which felt 3-dimensional? All the movement is triggered by Jan's performance, and it just meant that we could create a virtual space that then also is translated into the music videos, and again, a virtual version which can be flied around. I have like cameras inside the virtual worlds that are automated. So there's already ideas. How do we translate this to a live? Hang on, I'll put that. How we translate that into a live experience, also for people sat at home, which is kind of something I didn't think I was going to be massively interested in live streams, being really into physical experiences. But I think there's a nice democracy between people being able to access this, I think. So yeah, there you go. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Awesome. Next up, we've got Garry to talk about the actual sound and what immersive and new technology means for how we experience the sonic reality of music. So thank you, Garry.
Cheers, Pete. About 20 years ago, myself and Stefan had this idea that music was going to change and the way that we consumed it would change, and we kind of had this idea that it would become much more immersive and people would kind of be involved in the 3D-ness of it and feel like they were present. And as part of that kind of process, over about 15 years, we eventually got to the point where we thought, well, we were going to build something new to bring to the world. And we're really interested in the way that audio can be moved in space, in real spaces, but also in the mental space that you can create when you're listening to music. And so we're really interested in trying to moving audio so that we can move audiences, right? In the sense that we can move them and get them to make emotional connections with what they do. And so we do that with our set of tools that we've been building called the Sonic Reality Engine, which is about how do we reproduce sound scenes. And it's a little bit technical to kind of go into it, but I'll give you an example of one that we do, and this picture doesn't look very good from here, so maybe you can see it. So this is like 250 people in an audience in the London Symphony Orchestra's music room in London, and they're here to listen to a game of Quidditch, right? So literally, they're in a stadium of tens of thousands of people. That's what they're hearing. They're hearing the wizards flying around the auditorium. They're hearing the golden snitch and the chasing. And in the middle, there's a kind of a hologram or a holophonic hologram of two characters, one kind of narrating the game of Quidditch and another kind of being a showbiz gossip columnist of look who's in the box with Harry Potter type stuff. And everybody in that experience experienced that world from the position that they were sat at, right? So everybody had a completely unique experience. Nobody had to wear things. And basically, it was kind of builders. What Kinicho have done is let muggles listen into the magic realm, right? And it's a really good metaphor for what we're doing with technology, right? Because we want to create this new magic realm of music that takes us back somewhere. But there's a problem with the way that music is created today. It has this technical debt of the speaker, right? So I'm not going to get into the kind of technical of that, but if you don't know what technical debt is, it's kind of something that you did previously that you inherit that's going to cost you a lot to change things, or it's going to block you from doing what you want to do. And that's what we think is happening in music production at the moment. So back, like right at the beginning of recorded music production, everybody had this idea that you would just have one microphone and that would record everything, and then it would be played back through just one speaker, right? And there was always this one-to-one relationship, and it just wasn't possible to record lots of artists. So everybody sat around in different places so you could get that kind of mix. And that kind of became inherited through stereo music, and this is Les Paul, if you're into your guitars. He invented lots of interesting guitar bits, but he also invented multi-tracking for stereo music and worked out systems for panning so he could record Mary Ford, who was his wife at the time, and she would sing the songs that they were creating together, but she would also sing all the harmonies. So she was like a virtual backing band, right, in the 1950s, right? But everything was created around having two speakers. So where were you positioned on the left and right balance of those speakers? And today, right at the kind of very leading edge of this is the idea of Dolby Atmos. And it's like if you've got Apple Music, you've got 10 speakers that you're technically listening to in your headset, or Amazon and Tidal have 12 speakers. So that's kind of what's starting to happen, but that seems like a bit mad when we're kind of moving towards the metaverse, where you're going to be kind of engaging with things that are not planned. So there's no way you can kind of mix in advance. So you've got to think about how do these things going to be produced when they come into the future, so that, you know, if you take like an image like this is from I can't remember which metaverse it is, but one of the kind of metaverse tools where just the sonic relationships are just continually changing, right? And that's kind of what we've been building towards, is how do you actually do that without thinking about what kind of speaker system it might be on? Because today that you might be listening to just the simple speaker on your phone. Later you might be listening on your home cinema system. Later still you might be listening on headphones. And we need to be able to produce for all of that. So our approach is kind of based around a volumetric model that actually mirrors what sound is doing in the real world. Right? So this is a kind of a recording that we did just before the pandemic of a quartet. And we've developed this miking technique where we can build little arrays around them and capture the mic so that eventually when this all comes together, the listener can choose where they want to sit, right? They can sit anywhere. They can go and sit with the double bass player and see what it sounds like from the perspective of the double bass player as they're playing the song, right? Or they can go and stand in the center. And that's the kind of thing that you're going to want in the metaverse, because the idea that in the metaverse there's a stage and there's going to be a barrier from you is kind of problematic when we're talking, if you're thinking about where these things are going. When people are talking about NFTs and getting closer to artists, right? Actually, the next step is getting really close to them, right? And really being part of what's going on. So we need a new technology for doing that. And that's the kind of thing that we've been looking at, where we're making virtual audio much more natural and much more realistic, right? To mirror what's happening in that space. And that's really what we're doing, because we're really interested in the idea of presence. The thing that makes it about being in a live gig is that you feel present. And when you're listening to the greatest music you've got on your thing, you feel present, right? And that's the thing that's coming with all this technology. Everything that everybody's been mentioning today, that whole convergence, is really about making you feel present at things that you're not involved in, but you want to be involved in. And that's really what we're kind of focusing on, and bringing together quality and realism. And the one thing that you can't see in the bottom is speed, because the thing about our hearing is it's like we're really quick at being able to hear things and understand them. And a lot of the technology today, so we have some, you've seen some of the great stuff that Phil and Sam's doing, but it's still all very, very old music tech. And we're really kind of building the stuff that comes for the next music revolution. That's me.
Cool, brilliant. Yeah, and if anyone's got a question, if you'd like to put your hand up, Hayley's walking around with a roving mic. Three kind of different looks at music there, and how the visual or the kind of everything's coming together. Now, you all touched on this sort of notion of presence. Like, why are we not there yet? Why, what else needs to happen for you? And I know, Garry, you're talking about this sound thing, and very often the sound can be kind of forgotten in projects and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's two different things that's there. So one is there's a kind of a legacy of how we've done things, and we just keep doing it, right? And so that everybody kind of is happy with that. So you get a lot of immersive music, interactive stuff, where like the Travis thing that somebody's mentioned, or Miley Cyrus's video with 8D and stuff like that. But what you're actually listening to is just the stereo mix, and you could have been listening to that on Spotify. It doesn't actually take you anywhere closer into that process. And I think it's partly it's about the challenge of the technology, but also partly about the way that creatives come to it, and particularly with artists, is that they've spent such a long time producing their music that they don't want to let go of what they've currently got, and that's what they want. But the thing that's starting to change with that is that musicians are now starting to think about, how do we create for things like Dolby Atmos, right? And that's then how, as that starts to come, we've got some demos somewhere, if you catch us afterwards, of like Lil Nas X and his Montero thing, which is like, it's just a bloody great big all around you music process, right? And as artists are starting to think about that, they're then going to be starting to question, how do I get that into my fans' hands and ears through that technology? And I think that's slowly changing in the way that where the push is coming from.
Okay, and it obviously, like, talked about games engines, and with games as like the dominant kind of cultural form, I guess, that particularly young people are are growing up with. And Garry, you just mentioned that kind of letting go kind of thing. I was just wondering about what that might mean in terms of sort of agency. And, you know, if in the future we are going to be in the music video or we're going to be on the stage, what does that mean does it mean new possibilities? Does it mean like doing other things kind of thing? And I wonder if Phil, you wanted to...
Yeah, I mean,
kind of
games engines at the moment are used for a lot more than games, of course. Theme parks, you know, you go to Disney, if you're lucky enough to go to Galaxy's Edge, they'll use similar games engine technology to bring the environments to life that they would do on a modern virtual production film set. But, you know, right here in Liverpool in Alder Hey, they use games engines to be able to model patients' bodies, basically, before they go in and operate them on them, basically. So it's incredible the use of game engine at the moment. I would say that it is kind of already impacting music, in my opinion. I think there's an awful lot of, I don't know if anybody's done a study on this, I'm sure kind of Epic will have done, on kind of music discovery via things like Fortnite. My little lad will kind of be requesting to listen to, you know, Travis Scott or, you know, all sorts of different music because he's discovered it on Fortnite. And it's opened my eyes with some things, you know, some incredible music that I've discovered via it. And I think that's already happening. And I think it is changing our wider culture. I'd argue that something like Peep Show was not possible as a mainstream form of a beloved kind of TV show of, is it our generation's Only Fools and Horses? Maybe it is. I don't know. Would that have been possible without video games, without us being used to seeing things in a first person? Would it have been really jarring and avant-garde when we're used to that kind of broader third-person cinematography, and all of a sudden we're seeing not just first person, but kind of inner dialogues? Would that even be possible? So it may not be that there's game engines there, but it might shift our expectations. And so many people are using this technology. The stat that's amazed me, it's been true for several years, is more people use augmented reality on Snapchat alone than use Twitter full stop. So I'm not sure Elon is spending his cash wisely at all, because like for me, it is, you know, and you look at something like at the moment, you know, the Meta Quest, formerly known as Oculus Quest, is outselling the Xbox. You know, these are kind of immersive technologies and platforms with big audiences already. And as soon as a big artist, you know, takes a bite out of that and starts to really invest in that, then their audience's expectations will change. They will want to see something more interactive and more games style in its nature.
Okay, thank you, Phil. And I guess my kind of last question before we open it out is on this kind of idea of kind of hybrid space. And I think you were starting to touch on this, Sam, a bit with, because it's been really interesting, I think, during the pandemic, we've seen the massive benefits of like doing things where we're pushing it out into the world. You know, and events, suddenly they're accessible from people who wouldn't normally go to them, and all kinds of things. But we still crave the presence of the kind of live experience. I just wonder if you had any thoughts about how you see the future of this technology impacting like venues like this. Do you know, is there a future where we're in here, we're in multiple ways, and you know, it's inside and outside kind of thing? And I don't know if you want to...
We've been talking about this, quite a lot. And I think the idea of affecting production with, you know, augmented reality, or, you know, it feels like that might be a way things will go. So you might have an affected physical experience going to the venue. I think the fact that the content is being made on a platform that is immediately then, you know, able to be disseminated across a wider audience who might not be in the venue, there is interest there. It is interesting, like, you know, touching on people who can't make a festival show will still watch a stream these days. And I found myself watching a lot more streams and watching kind of, you know, small kind of a live DJ, you know, people in their bedrooms with lasers you'd never have watched, you know, and during the pandemic, suddenly this became almost okay, you know, and things are definitely moving on from that. And I do feel that it's the access is the big thing, isn't it? I think allowing audiences to engage. It's weird how some of the productions I'm looking at, I almost feel like I'm interested in making it feel like a virtual experience, virtual reality experience, when actually it's, there is no tech involved on the audience's side, but it feels like that's an immersive experience that people are quite ready to give themselves up to. They want to be taken on a journey. You're kind of open to that, especially at a music show or a festival, So I do feel like there's a real exciting moment, and I think a lot will happen in the next few years. And whether people will be wearing more tech to experience things, that started to happen anyway in shows, and maybe people will get more accepting to do something like that if it's possible.
Cool, great. And does anyone in the audience have any questions? Yeah, down here. And if you could just introduce yourself as well, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm a audio engineering and musician. I'm a student. And I was wondering about whether you think the way that Atmos is delivered and standards like that, where it's in the control of a company and a workflow that's controlled by like a renderer box and all these things, limit the way that it can make its way into the industry and the way that it can be experienced.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. And I guess
that's a question for me. The answer is, I think the answer is sort of yes. So Dolby has this like total grip on the music industry, and it creates lots of problems for people to come in, because you've got to deliver it in that format, and it's got to go through the distributor in that format, and so on. But at the same time, the speed of which immersive music has happened in the last 18 months could only have happened because Dolby and Apple had a partnership. There are no other players that could have done that speed and the scale of which they delivered it. And the question is what comes next, and whether the platforms that are hosting that are then willing to open up to something else. And it's the big challenge that we face, right? It's like we literally had to rebuild some of our technology to make it work with Dolby Atmos, because we just didn't have a choice if we want to play in that field. But I think but ultimately, I think the things that artists, some of the artists that we're talking to, what they want to do, what they realize very quickly, that they just can't do it with Dolby Atmos because of that speaker system and everything that comes with it at a later date, So I think it'll change, but I don't know how quick it will change.
Cool, thank you. Garry, yes, at the back. Cool.
Hi, it's Con. I work with two technology companies, one called Victors, one called Dragonfly. There's no doubt that what all of the panelists presented today was incredibly innovative and impressive. But many people would argue that the music industry itself doesn't innovate. You keep referencing artists who almost certainly would like to innovate. Is that the biggest challenge for all three on the panel?
Okay.
Yeah, it's something where I think there is an appetite, isn't there, from some people to innovate. And I do think music, because it has kind of, everybody's always searching for what is new. That's been my experience of music, that it's always moving. So it does kind of go hand in hand with innovation, but actually being able to, go, okay, I've got this incredible idea for a new generation music video that's like nothing else, and actually to put that into action, it's not easy, is it? It's not straightforward. Where do you start? Especially if you haven't got a label behind you. How do you do that by yourself? I think it was Jane earlier who was saying, just get hold of these tools yourself, go and pick up Spark AR or whatever, is your poison, and go and try it, experiment with it. It may surprise you. But yeah, I mean, that is the single biggest thing, is finding artists who have that appetite for innovation. Then they've got to have a certain kind of time or certain budget or whatever it might be. They've got to have access to the right people to work with, those collaborators that again, we were speaking about earlier, bringing everything together. And that's not always easy, definitely not for that all to align. In our experience, music has been kind of very fertile for us as a company. At Draw and Code, we've found ourselves, when we kind of work with record labels, they are ambitious, and rightly so, and they often have a very particular vision. They often come with a very complete brief of going, we want to experiment with this particular technology. We believe it can do this for us, and here is the creative vision. And we really like that, but we're also quite happy if somebody comes up and just goes, yeah, I like this technology, what can we do? And there isn't really a brief there. We're happy to work with them as well. But yeah, it is kind of getting all those stars in alignment doesn't always happen. But perhaps it will have to in the future. Perhaps artists will have to do that and will have to use technology. They'll be forced into doing it. I don't know.
Cool. And Garry?
Yeah, I want to ask Phil a question actually about that, because I kind of think, I kind of agree with the question that the music industry is not very innovative. Right? I think it's really reluctant to change what it does, apart from it does some really good marketing, right? So kind of, so from MTV onwards, it's really about marketing the music, but it's not really innovating in the music space, right? And it's like, and so do you think that, is there things that you're seeing, because you're kind of really engaged in that part of the space, do you see music companies wanting to do something kind of beyond that, with where their artists are saying, we actually want to talk to people, we want to engage with our audiences in a new way, right? Rather than here is the package, the stereo package that you've bought is the same stereo package that you've been buying since 1957, right? It's just in a different wrapper. And I suppose that question is there something about that innovation that might break what's inside the wrapper?
Yeah, no, I agree totally. It's and I think there is kind of an urgency to it now. Hence why we're all in this room together, where people are starting to think like that. We have kind of some people come to us, and it will be purely about marketing. They will just go, we are here. Saying about the Pink Floyd example was to promote, traditional medium. It was to sell vinyl, basically. It was their main aim, and it did just that. But that means it's kind of disconnected from the product you get. It might be creatively linked, because we've used creative inspiration from that record and its artwork, but it's not directly, one doesn't directly affect the other. You can enjoy one without the other. We are kind of speaking, but it does tend to be really big majors as well that tend to have these ambitions, because they have the means to do it. They'll have departments some of them have innovation departments. You look at Universal Music with Abbey Road and things like that. They've just got a whole innovation team and a lab and scale-ups and startups they work with and everything. So they'll come to you with these massively ambitious projects. But it's not necessarily accessible to everybody to have that really complete vision. So they might look at it as a quick marketing piece, go, okay, let's use technology for some really exciting marketing, and that's it, rather than the actual product itself.
Great. I mean, the only thing I would add into that, there's a lot of innovation happening in things that aren't on big labels or are in DIY spaces or underground small boutique festivals as well. I mean, I don't think it's all driven by commerciality or finance. I think there's a lot of people trying to make new experiences and interesting thing happen. And I think obviously they become the precursor to that technology being used later date, and you're right about budget. Budget is often kind of a factor of, how far can things be developed, or, again, like an audience experience. If you're wanting everyone to have the same experience and have a piece of kit, then that's a huge, limiting element. But I keep on going to, much smaller shows and seeing amazing innovation happening as well, which is just because people are really trying hard and pushing boundaries and being interesting.
Great. And I think got time for one more question. Is there a hand up at the back? Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Roger, and I'm an artist, and I always keep a great critical detachment from the music industry, because it seems to have been a self-fulfilling prophecy for quite a long time. But I have recently been working a lot with people who are suffering or experiencing dementia. And it reminds me that one of the great themes of the present, and not just because of the pandemic, is mental health and the ability of minds and the rest to be recalibrated sometimes on the basis of strain, stress, and everything else. And I'm wondering whether any of the panelists think there is a future for the kind of technology, not just the stuff they've been talking about, but the sort of stuff that people have been talking about in the other panels, as to create something that could be administered through some kind of health system that would essentially be about self-administered sound medication applied by individuals or indeed groups to take control of their own self-restitution. I mean, in other words, is there a future in any of this technology in terms of social mental health?
Yeah. So, and yeah, because I'm aware of like a huge area of immersive is around kind of health and mental health, and I know there's certainly work happening in places like Older Hay, even looking at things like how immersive can help with pain relief and things like that, because you're so there, you know, your brain finds it hard to distinguish that to the real. It's actually, it can have this really interesting effect on the brain, and so there is a lot of work happening in there, and I don't know if you're aware of anything.
Yeah, in terms of more visual things rather than sound as well, we've just completed work with the University of Liverpool on a really exciting project called Shelter that's basically came about because of the pandemic, because it meant that in kind of degrees that are quite high stress, such as nursing was particularly what they were focusing on, where often there'll be kind of, big, long periods of work placements, of residential placements that are really stressful for the students, their first experience of anything like that. But meanwhile, they couldn't get the one-to-one sessions with tutors and other experts and other people who can help them to help guide them through that, and particularly just to talk through issues and kind of be that emotional support for them. And we basically developed a VR solution for that. They did research around it first before commissioning this, of finding that VR was a really good way to connect people remotely. And that project's about to launch. But there's also National Museums Liverpool. They've been, as you will most probably be aware, been working with their House of Memories kind of spin-off project that's really kind of grown legs and really got bigger and bigger. And they're basically all about using objects in their collection to aid with, particularly with dementia, of basically aiding the kind of, not necessarily memory, but more about engagement with people around them, and to enable conversations between kind of dementia patients and either their family or people who are treating them or whoever it may be. And they're now starting to look at immersive technology and techniques to enable that. They've been doing work with projection map spaces to fully immerse the patients into this world. So yeah, probably, I don't have any examples with sound, but that's good examples with vision.
Garry, I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of really cool projects. One that's a little bit older, where they were, which was aimed at people with dementia, which was built around families bringing kind of mementos together and music and stuff like that about the past into an app, and then which was accessible via a tablet, and so that the dementia sufferer was then able to kind of navigate through this space, and then they'd be like, it'd be the music that they liked from the holiday that they were on in Blackpool in 1971, right? And it was kind of like a really nice way of kind of accessing stuff that could trigger memories. So I've seen quite a bit like that. And then there's another app that, and I can't remember the name of this, which was, it's got like a VR front end, but also a desktop front end. And it's definitely, it's aimed at kind of mental health stuff, where basically it's an auto-generated music thing, and you're just changing various parameters which kind of make the music more calmer, or more ethereal or whatever it is that you're doing, to kind of take you through that process where after half an hour of kind of twiddling knobs, and any musicians in here have probably done half an hour of twiddling knobs and felt better for it at the end. Not that kind of knob, though.
No.
Not for half an hour.
Right.
Sorry.
So yeah, I think we probably need to kind of wrap up now. I just want to, at some point, whenever, I just want to know kind of if you've got any kind of closing thoughts or like what you're really excited about that's kind of happening in this space, because there's a lot happening at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah, I think my brief presentation did hint at that. I'm really excited about virtual production in music performance. I say that Katy Perry performance, look it up. Go on the Googles and go and find Katy Perry virtual stage. We'll probably find it for you. It's beautifully simple visuals, incredible choreography, just one woman in a dream world, basically, and it looks incredible, and I look forward to more of that.
Great. Sam?
Yeah, going back out and touring, actually, which we've been delayed because of the pandemic. But I think, this next few years will be a moment when you'll see much more of this as well, and I think I'll be inspired seeing shows and seeing other artists, and hopefully performing as well will be really fun again. So, yeah.
Great. And finally, Garry.
Yeah, similarly with Phil, I'm really excited about what virtual production technologies are going to deliver, because it just changes the way. And I think, just like I don't know, probably 10 years ago, the AR filters were really, really difficult to build. And today there are things like Spark AI, which will let you do it. And similarly with the virtual production technology, I think that will probably democratize the process a little bit further. And then with the kind of metaverse NFT space, I think, and I've seen lots of things that's going on there, like some of the platforms like Audius and so on, that are really trying to change the way that music is made and who makes it and who owns it and the relationships in that space. And I think that out of the mix of those two things, I think we're probably, and well, I kind of hope, but I think it's going to happen, we'll probably have a kind of a new blossoming that's probably something like the late 60s, early 70s with music. I think that's kind of on the cards.
Brilliant. Thank you, Garry, and thank you, Phil and Sam as well. So yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Cheers, guys. Cool.
Wow. Thanks, everyone, and thanks to this panel. I've loved everything about today. And I loved that, so thank you very much. Before you kind of all depart, well, don't depart, stay, please. Join us for the free bar, which will open, well, kind of momentarily now. But if you haven't already, we've been videoing this session today, and that'll feature on the LCR Music Board website. So do go and check that out. But also on that LCR Music Board website, there's opportunities that, you can sign up for the newsletter, which will tell you all about everything that's going on, whether we've got any more events coming up. But also, there's an opportunities board there. So if you're an employer or you're doing stuff, you can post your things there. Just generally keeping together, keeping us all connected. So go and check that out. That would be absolutely great.